Hello and welcome to our channel. We hope you enjoy this story. The rain had started to fall when I sat down on the curb, clutching the broken handle of my suitcase as if it were the only thing keeping me tied to reality. The water mixed with my tears, and I could no longer tell which was wetting my face more. My knees trembled not just from the chill of the encroaching evening, but from the shock from the humiliation that still burned in my chest like live coals. 2 hours. Only 2 hours had passed since Christine Moore had thrown me out onto the street like trash. I could still hear her shrill voice dripping with contempt. "Get out of my house, you useless charity case, 8 years and not even one child to show for it. You're an embarrassment, an empty woman who's only ever been good for cleaning and cooking like the maid you were always meant to be." I squeezed my eyes shut, but that only made the images more vivid. Martin standing behind his mother, staring at the floor, unable to defend me even in that final moment. My husband, the man who promised to love me for better or for worse, the same one who didn't say a word, as his mother started tossing my clothes from the second-floor window, my dresses falling like wounded birds, my hairbrush shattering. On the pavement, the photograph from our wedding, the one where I was smiling full of hope, broken into 1,000 pieces on the wet lawn. And then this suitcase, the same old one I'd arrived at this house with 8 years ago, back when I still believed in fairy tales. "At least you're leaving with what you brought," Christine had said with a cruel smile. "Nothing in this house is yours. Nothing. Get dressed in your rags and get lost before I call the police." I had dressed in the front yard under the gaze of neighbors, peering through their windows, their hands trembling at their sides. I tried to gather what I could of my life scattered on the ground. A muddy sweater, a mismatched pair of shoes, the chain that had belonged to my mother miraculously intact among the debris of my existence. Now I was here on this unfamiliar curb because I didn't even have the courage to stay in front of that house. I walked aimlessly for almost an hour until my legs couldn't carry me anymore, and I collapsed onto this curb in this neighborhood I didn't recognize with a suitcase that was falling apart in my hands, just as my life had fallen apart. I had no money. My mother-in-law never allowed me to work. "More family wives don't work," she'd say. "It's a disgrace." So I spent 8 years cooking, cleaning, tending to her every whim while Martin worked at the family auto parts business. A modest business enough to put on airs of grandeur, but not enough for the reality Christine believed she deserved, and stupid me, I tried to please her. I learned to make her favorite dishes, though they were never good enough. I cleaned her house until my hands were raw, though she always found imaginary dust in some corner. I endured her comments about my body, my face, my inability to give her grandchildren. 5 miscarriages in 6 years. 5 times my body betrayed me. 5 times Christine called me barren, empty, useless. Martin never defended me. At first I thought it was cowardice that he was afraid to confront his mother. Over time I understood that he simply agreed with her. I wasn't enough. I never had been. I probably never would be. The sound of an engine pulled me from my thoughts. I looked up, expecting to see a car drive by like all the others. But this one didn't drive by. It stopped right in front of me. A black Mercedes gleaming, even in the rain. The tires crunched softly on the wet pavement, and my heart gave an absurd leap. For a moment, just one insane moment, I thought it was Martin, that he'd come to get me, that he'd tell me it had all been a terrible mistake, a nightmare, and to please come home. But when the door opened, the man who emerged wasn't Martin. He was older, perhaps in his 60s, dressed in a dark suit that looked expensive even to my untrained eyes. Silver hair perfectly combed back. A straight, elegant posture. He held a black umbrella which he opened with a fluid motion before approaching me. He looked at me with a strange expression somewhere between compassion and relief, and said in a firm but kind voice, "Mrs. Valerie Moore, your father is waiting for you." The world stopped. The rain, the distant traffic noise, everything went silent. Only those words remained floating in the air, impossible, absurd. What I managed to articulate, though, my voice sounded like a croak. My father was dead. He had died when I was 5. At least that's what I'd been told my whole life. My Aunt Sophia, who raised me after my mother died when I was 6, had repeated it to me 1,000 times. "Your father abandoned us before you were born. He was a heartless man who wanted nothing to do with you. When you had to have an emergency appendectomy at age 5, he found out and didn't lift a finger. He died in an accident shortly after, and it was the best thing he could have done for you." "There must be a mistake," I said, trying to stand. My legs barely held me. The man extended a steady hand to help me, and I took it out of pure instinct. "My father is dead. He died over 30 years ago." The man shook his head, slowly reached into the inner pocket of his jacket, and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "There's no mistake, ma'am. Mr. Richard Sanford has been searching for you for 32 years, every single day of these 32 years, and he has finally found you." He held the envelope out to me. I took it with hands that trembled so violently I almost dropped it. Inside were documents, but the first thing I saw was an old photograph, one of those with worn edges and slightly faded colors. A beautiful young woman with my same straight nose, my same wide mouth, my same dark wavy hair. She was holding a little girl, maybe 3 or 4 years old, who was smiling at the camera with 2 missing teeth. And behind them, with his arms around them both, was a man with light eyes, dark hair, and a genuine smile. I turned the photograph over with shaking hands. On the back, in slanted, faded ink, it said Eleanor, Valerie, and me. Last day together, April 1993. The air escaped my lungs. My mother, me, and this man who was supposed to have died when I was 5. "No, I don't understand," I whispered. The tears started falling again now, mixed with confusion with something I didn't dare name yet. My Aunt Sophia told me my father died, that he abandoned us, that he never cared. The man who still hadn't introduced himself looked at me with a deep sadness in his eyes. "Mrs. Moore, your Aunt Sophia lied to you. Your father never abandoned you. He never stopped looking for you. And he is very ill. He doesn't have much time left. Please allow me to take you to him. Allow me to explain everything on the way. But we must go now." I looked at the photograph again. That little girl was me. I knew it with every fiber of my being. I recognized the mole on my neck, the shape of my small hands. And that man, he had my eyes. The same light, almost gray eyes that had always made me different in a family of dark-eyed people. I glanced up toward Martin's house, that 2-story construction with a front garden that had never, ever felt like my home. The living room curtains moved slightly. Christine spying, enjoying my misery, probably calling the neighbors to tell them how she had kicked out her useless daughter-in-law. I thought about the 8 years I'd spent in that house, 8 years of getting up at 5 a.m., to prepare Christine's breakfast exactly how she liked it: black coffee with no sugar, 2 slices of barely toasted bread, butter but never margarine, strawberry preserves, but only a certain imported brand. 8 years of cleaning every corner of that house while she followed me with poisonous comments. "Oh, Valerie, you look like hired help. You just have no grace, no class. My Martin lowered himself so much by marrying you. 8 years of cooking elaborate meals for family dinners where Christine would invite her friends to show off and then make me eat in the kitchen. You can't sit with us dressed like that. What will people think? 8 years of hearing her tell Martin, thinking, I couldn't hear, you should divorce her. She's defective, she can't give you children. Get yourself a real woman. And Martin, my husband, the man who once told me he loved me, never defended me, not once in 8 years. When his mother insulted me, he looked away. When she made me cry, he shut himself in his room. And today, when she threw me out like garbage, he just stood there silent, the coward he always was. What have I got to lose? I heard myself say aloud. The man in the suit looked at me with understanding. I've already lost everything. Or so I thought. My name is Robert Fisher, he said, finally extending his hand formally. I am the personal assistant to Mr. Richard Sanford, your father. And I can assure you, Mrs. Moore, you haven't lost everything. In fact, you've just found it. I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm. He picked up my broken suitcase from the ground carefully, as if it were something valuable and not a piece of ruined luggage. He guided me to the car, opening the back door with a gesture that mixed urgency with a respect no one had shown me in years. I slid into the back seat. The interior smelled of new leather, of that expensive cologne I only knew from magazines, of an impeccable cleanliness I had never experienced. It was like entering another world. Robert placed my suitcase carefully in the trunk and then got behind the wheel. Ready? He asked, looking at me in the rearview mirror. I didn't know if I was ready, I didn't know what was happening, but I nodded anyway. Because what else could I do? Go back to that curb in the rain, try to knock on the door of a house that had spit me out. The car started smoothly, so different from Martin's old pickup truck that always coughed and shuddered. Robert drove in silence for the first few minutes, giving me time to breathe, to process. I stared out the window without really seeing anything, just blurs of light and shadow through the wet glass. Finally, Robert spoke. His voice was soft, almost gentle, as if he were afraid of breaking me with the words he was about to say. Your father, Richard Sanford, met your mother when they were both very young. He was 22, a pre-med student at the university. She was 20, a first-grade teacher at a school downtown. They met in a library. He was studying for an exam. She was looking for books for her students. She tripped over a stack of books he'd left on the floor, and everything came crashing down. She apologized 20 times while they picked up the books together. He says he fell in love in that very moment. I found myself smiling despite everything, imagining the scene. My mother had been beautiful, I remembered vaguely, and kind, always so kind. They saw each other every day after that. He would wait for her after school. She would bring him lunch at the library. Within 6 months, they were planning to get married. He introduced her to his family, expecting them to welcome her with open arms. But the Sanford family had other plans for their only son. Robert paused as if the next words weighed on him. The Sanfords are or were one of the wealthiest families in the country. Construction real estate investments. Richard was the heir to all of it, and his parents, your grandparents, had already arranged his future. They wanted him to marry the daughter of another major businessman, someone who would bring more power, more money to the family. Your mother, Eleanor, was a public school teacher, the daughter of immigrants who had arrived with nothing and worked their whole lives. For the Sanfords, she wasn't enough. Rage began to boil in my chest. It all sounded so familiar. Another wealthy family looking down on someone for not having enough money, the right last name, enough class. Richard fought for her. He told his family that Eleanor was the love of his life, that he would marry her with or without their blessing. He would give up his inheritance, his name if necessary. But his parents played dirty. Robert gripped the steering wheel tightly. Even after so many years, the story seemed to enrage him. They told him he needed to travel to Europe for 2 weeks, an urgent business trip to save a major contract. They begged him. They told him that if he did this one thing for them, they would accept his marriage to Eleanor. He was young, naive. He trusted them. And I asked, though I could already imagine the answer. When he got to Europe, he discovered his parents had canceled all his identification. They blocked his bank accounts, confiscated his passport. They left him stranded in London with no way to return, no money, nothing. It took him almost 3 years to get help to save money, working odd jobs to get new documents. 3 years, Mrs. Moore. 3 years desperate to get back to the woman he loved. I felt nauseous. 3 years. My mother was pregnant during those 3 years. She had her baby alone. She had me alone. And my mother, I asked, my voice breaking. What did they tell her? They showed her forged documents, doctored photographs of Richard with another woman in Europe kissing her at what looked like a wedding. They told him he had married an English heiress, that he had forgotten about her, that she had never been more than a fling for him. Your mother was 5 months pregnant when they showed her those photos. I closed my eyes, imagining my mother's pain, alone pregnant, believing the man she loved had betrayed her in the cruelest way. The Sanford family offered her money, an obscene amount of money, to disappear, to never try to contact their son again, to never make a claim. Your mother threw the money in their faces. She told them she would rather starve than accept a penny from people like them. And she disappeared. She moved to a different city, used her maternal grandmother's maiden name, Moore, and cut off all contact with anyone who could lead the Sanfords to her. She wanted to protect you from those people. But my father came back, I whispered. You said it took 3 years, but he came back. Yes. When he finally returned, he searched for your mother desperately. It took him 6 months to find her. But by then, Robert swallowed hard. By then, your mother was already married to another man. A man named John Ross, your stepfather. A memory hit me like a punch. John. A large man with heavy hands and breath that smelled of cheap beer. I remember hiding under the table when he came home. I remember my mother with bruises she tried to cover with makeup. I remember shouting broken plates fear. He was violent, I said. It wasn't a question. Yes, a violent alcoholic who made your mother's life hell. She had married him out of desperation, looking for protection, a father for you. But it turned out to be worse than being alone. Richard found her, tried to help her, begged her to let him rescue you both. But your mother didn't trust him anymore. She thought he had betrayed her, that the photos were real, that it had all been a lie, and she was afraid. John Ross threatened to kill both of you if your father ever came near again. He threatened to hurt you specifically if your mother left him. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. My mother had suffered so much, had protected me so much, and I never knew. Your father was forced to stay away, but he never stopped watching over you. He hired people to follow you to make sure you were safe. He sent anonymous money that your mother probably thought came from some charity. He did what he could from the shadows. And then your mother got sick. Cancer, I whispered. I remembered it vaguely. My mother getting thinner, losing her hair, coughing until she couldn't breathe. Lung cancer. Your father paid for all the treatments secretly through fictitious foundations, but it was already too late. She died when you were 6, and before she died, she finally learned the truth. Richard went to see her in the hospital one last time. He showed her the evidence, the real documents, proof that they had both been deceived. Your mother cried, she begged for his forgiveness, she asked him to take care of you. But by then, John Ross had already called his sister Sophia Ross to take charge of you. My Aunt Sophia, I said bitterly. The woman who raised me in a 2-bedroom apartment where money was always tight, where clothes were second-hand and meals were beans and rice 6 days a week, where every penny was counted and every wish was an impossible luxury. Your Aunt Sophia hated your father with all her soul. She blamed Richard for everything, for your mother's pregnancy, for the marriage to her abusive brother, for your mother's death. It wasn't rational. But grief and family loyalty can cloud one's judgment. When your mother died, your aunt took you and disappeared. She changed your last name, forged documents, moved to another city. She used every trick possible to erase your trail. But he found me, I said, looking out the window. We were no longer in the city. The landscape had changed to exclusive residential areas with mansions hidden behind high walls and sprawling gardens. It took him 32 years, Mrs. Moore. 32 years of private investigators, of following cold leads, of dead ends. 6 months ago, finally, an investigator located you, saw you leaving your husband's house, followed you, confirmed your identity by comparing photographs, physical features. Richard wanted to approach you immediately, but his lawyers advised caution. He didn't want to scare you. He didn't want you to think he was some kind of con man or that he was crazy. So he waited. He hired people to watch you discreetly, to understand your life, to find the right moment. He was spying on me, I said, but without the anger I should have felt. After everything that had happened today, after everything I had just discovered, it was hard to feel indignant about that. He was protecting you, Robert corrected again. And when he saw through the surveillance cameras they had placed near that house what your mother-in-law did to you today, when he saw you being thrown out onto the street, he knew he couldn't wait any longer. His health has deteriorated rapidly in recent weeks. The doctors give him maybe 2 or 3 months. He doesn't have time for careful plans. He only has time for the truth. The car slowed. In front of us, an imposing wrought iron gate rose like the entrance to another world. A uniformed security guard approached, recognized the car immediately, and saluted respectfully before pressing a button. The gates opened silently like the doors to heaven. We drove up a perfectly laid cobblestone driveway lined with ancient trees that formed a tunnel of green shadows. On either side were gardens that looked like they were from a magazine, flowers. I couldn't name perfectly manicured small fountains, marble statues, paths that disappeared among precisely trimmed hedges. And at the end of the driveway, the house? No, it wasn't a house, it was a mansion. 3 stories of elegant architecture, with white columns at the main entrance, enormous windows that shone in the fading light balconies with wrought iron railings. A circular fountain in the center of the courtyard held a bronze sculpture of a woman and a little girl in an embrace. Your father commissioned that sculpture 20 years ago, Robert said softly. It's your mother and you from the photograph I showed you. He looks at it every day from his window. I couldn't speak. I had no words for any of this. Robert parked the car in front of a side entrance, not the main one. Your father prefers you to enter here, he explained. It's more private, more intimate. We got out of the car. Robert took my broken suitcase from the trunk with the same care as before, as if it were a priceless treasure. He led me to a dark, carved wooden door. A uniformed staff member opened it from the inside, greeting us with a nod that made me feel completely out of place. The interior was even more impressive than the exterior. Marble floors reflected the light from crystal chandeliers. Walls were adorned with paintings that looked like they belonged in a museum. Antique furniture, elegant, perfect, everything smelled of cleanliness, fresh flowers, and a quiet luxury I had never experienced. We walked through silent corridors past staff who greeted us respectfully, looking at me with poorly concealed curiosity. We reached a small, private elevator paneled in wood and mirrors. Robert pressed the button for the 3rd floor. He's in his room, he said as we ascended. For the last few months, he's spent most of his time there. He's too weak to move much. He has round-the-clock nurses, doctors who visit daily. He's doing everything he can to extend his life until you're ready to take the reins of all this. Take the reins, I repeated, feeling a surge of panic. Robert, I don't know anything about business. I barely finished high school. I've spent the last 8 years cleaning house and cooking. I can't run a corporate empire. Robert looked at me with a kind smile. "No one expects you to do it alone, Mrs. Moore. Your father has prepared everything. You have advisors, lawyers, trusted executives who have been with him for decades. They will guide you. They will teach you everything you need to know. But it needs to be you who makes the final decisions. You are his heir, his only family, his blood." The elevator stopped gently. The doors opened to a private hallway more intimate than the spaces below. There were photographs on the walls here. I approached one trembling. It was my mother, young, beautiful, smiling at the camera. And next to her, the man with the light eyes from the photo Robert had given me, my father. They looked so in love, so happy, so completely oblivious to the tragedy that awaited them. There were more photos, my mother pregnant and radiant. Me as a baby in my father's arms, both of them asleep on a sofa. Me learning to walk, with my father kneeling in front of me, arms outstretched. Me, on my 3rd birthday, covered in cake, laughing. "These are the only photographs he could get his hands on before your aunt disappeared with you," Robert explained. "They are his most precious treasure. He looks at them every day." The tears were falling again. I couldn't stop crying. A whole lifetime of photographs I never knew existed. Evidence of a father who had loved me, who had been there, who had wanted to be there. Robert stopped in front of a carved wooden door at the end of the hall. He knocked gently. "Come in," a voice said from within. It was weak, raspy, but held an unmistakable warmth. Robert opened the door and gestured for me to enter. I took one step, then another. The room was large, illuminated by the soft evening light filtering through enormous windows. There were medical machines to one side, a nurse in a white uniform who discreetly withdrew as she saw me enter, and in the center, in a huge bed with impeccable white linens, was him, my father. Richard Sanford was a man ravaged by illness. He was thin to the point of being skeletal, his skin pale and almost translucent. Tubes connected to his arms, a monitor beeping softly, marking his pulse. But his eyes, those light eyes like a winter sky identical to my own, were bright, alert, and filled with tears. "Valerie," he whispered, his voice broken by emotion and illness. "My little girl, my little Valerie, finally." I stood frozen in the doorway, not knowing what to do, what to say. This man was a stranger, but he was also my father. My father who had searched for me for 32 years. My father who had never abandoned me. My father who was dying. He extended a trembling hand toward me. "Please," he said, "please come closer. Let me see you. Let me look at you up close just once." My legs moved of their own accord. I walked to the bed step by step until I was beside him. Up close I could see the tears running down his sunken cheeks. I could see how he trembled not just from illness but from emotion. "You're the image of your mother," he whispered. "My God, you look exactly like her. Beautiful. So beautiful. And your eyes? You have my eyes." "Yes," I managed to say. "I always wondered where they came from. My whole family had dark eyes. Except me. Because you're mine," he said fiercely, with a pride no one had ever shown for me. "You are my daughter, my blood, and I have waited my entire life to tell you that." Then it happened. His arms stretched out for me, frail but insistent, and I, who had spent the day being humiliated, thrown out like trash, called useless and barren and empty, found myself falling into those arms. I found myself crying against the chest of this dying man who was my father. I found myself clinging to him like the little girl I never got to be in his arms. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I'm so sorry, my child. Forgive me. Forgive me for not being there, for not protecting you, for not giving you the life you deserved. Forgive me." "It wasn't your fault," I managed to say between my own sobs. "Robert told me everything. It wasn't your fault." "I love you," he whispered into my hair. "From the moment you were born, from before you were born. I have lived every day of these 32 years with a hole in my chest where you were supposed to be. And now you're here. You're finally here." We stayed like that, holding each other, crying together as the sun set outside and the shadows lengthened in the room. A father and a daughter reunited after a lifetime lost, after so many lies, so much pain, so much injustice. And in that moment, sitting on that bed next to this man who was a stranger but also my blood, I realized something. I hadn't lost everything today when Christine Moore threw me out onto the street. I hadn't lost anything that truly mattered. Because everything I thought I had, my marriage to Martin, my life in that house, my place in that family, had never really been mine to begin with. But this man, this father who had searched for me tirelessly, this love that had existed all along, even when I didn't know it, this was real. This was mine. And for the first time in 8 years, perhaps for the first time in my entire life, I felt truly home. I woke up in a bed I didn't recognize. For a moment of pure panic, I thought it had all been a dream, that I was still at Martin's house, that any second I would hear Christine's heavy footsteps in the hall, her voice shouting for me to get up and make breakfast. But the sheets under my fingers were a softness I had never known. The mattress cushioned my body perfectly, without the broken springs that dug into my back every night. And the silence, God, the silence was absolute. No traffic noise, no neighbors shouting, no Christine's television blasting from 6 a.m. I opened my eyes slowly. Sunlight streamed through white gauze curtains, illuminating a room larger than the entire apartment where I grew up with my Aunt Sophia. Ivory-colored walls, dark wood furniture that smelled of beeswax, a Persian rug that probably cost more than a car. On the nightstand there was a pitcher of fresh water with lemon slices and a crystal glass. I sat up slowly, still disoriented. I was wearing a silk nightgown that wasn't mine. Someone had changed my clothes while I slept. The thought made me blush until I saw a folded note next to the water pitcher. "Miss Sandford," it read in neat script. "The nurse Carmen changed your clothes last night after you fell asleep beside your father. Your clothes are being laundered. You will find robes and comfortable attire in the closet. When you are ready, please press the call button by the bed, and someone will come to escort you to the dining room for breakfast. Robert Fisher." Miss Sandford, my real name. I touched the silk of the nightgown, so different from the old cotton t-shirts I slept in at Martin's. Martin's house. I couldn't call it my home anymore. It had never really been my home. I got up and walked to the closet. When I opened it, I gasped. It was filled with clothes, not just a few items, but dozens of garments still with their tags on. Soft cotton robes, casual dresses in my exact size, new underwear, socks, velvet slippers, all in muted, tasteful colors, nothing ostentatious, but all of a quality I had never touched. I chose a light blue robe and put it on. It fit perfectly. I walked to the full-length mirror in the corner and hardly recognized myself. My hair was a mess, my eyes were swollen from crying, but there was something different in my expression, a tiny spark of something that had been dead for years. I pressed the call button. In less than a minute, there was a soft knock on the door. "Come in," I said, my voice uncertain. A woman in her 50s entered, dressed in an impeccable housekeeper's uniform, but with a warm smile that reminded me of my mother. "Good morning, Miss Valerie. I'm Maria, the head housekeeper. Did you rest well?" "Yes, thank you," I replied automatically, my mind still processing that someone had called me Miss with genuine respect and not the poisonous sarcasm Christine used. "Mr. Sandford is waiting for you for breakfast. If you'll allow me, I'll escort you." Maria waited patiently while I slipped on the slippers, not rushing me, not pressuring me. Then she led me down the hall. We took the elevator down, crossed the house to a glass-enclosed sunroom filled with plants and natural light. My father was there, sitting in a wheelchair next to a table set for two. He looked a little better than last night, still thin and pale, but his eyes lit up when he saw me enter. "Valerie," he said, his voice, though weak, filled with joy. "I thought maybe it was a dream that I'd wake up and you'd be gone again." "I'm here," I said softly, approaching the table. "I still don't completely understand what's happening, but I'm here." "That's all I need," he replied. "For you to be here. So I can see you, talk to you." Maria and another staff member began serving breakfast. And what a breakfast it was. Fresh fruit cut into perfect shapes, freshly baked bread that filled the sunroom with its aroma, eggs prepared 3 different ways, homemade yogurt with honey, fresh squeezed orange juice, coffee that smelled like heaven. I stared at it all, not knowing where to begin. At Martin's, breakfast was instant coffee and yesterday's bread if I was lucky. Christine ate first, taking the best of everything, and I ate whatever was left after serving her and Martin. "Eat whatever you like," my father said, noticing my hesitation. "It's all for you. You don't have to ask permission from anyone anymore, Valerie. You don't have to settle for leftovers." Those words broke something inside me. I took a piece of bread, still warm, and spread butter on it, which melted on contact. The first bite was a revelation. It tasted of home, of love, of everything I had never had. We ate in silence for a few minutes, me trying not to devour everything like a starving woman, though that was exactly what I was. He watched me with a tenderness that made me want to cry again. "Robert told you what happened," he said finally. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," I answered, "but there's still so much I don't understand. Why did Aunt Sophia lie to me for all those years? Why did she tell me you were dead? Why did she make me grow up thinking I'd been abandoned?" My father sighed deeply. "Hate. Misdirected grief. Your Aunt Sophia was the younger sister of John Ross, your stepfather. When your mother died, she blamed everyone but her brother. She blamed me for winning your mother's heart, for making her vulnerable. She blamed your mother for marrying John for protection, but she never blamed her brother for being a violent alcoholic who made your mother's life a living hell. We lived in poverty, I said bitterly. The apartment I grew up in, the secondhand clothes, the constant lack of food. I went to bed hungry many nights. And you had all of this. You could have given me a completely different life. I saw the pain in his eyes and immediately felt terrible. I'm sorry, I rushed to say. I didn't mean— No, he interrupted, his voice firm despite his weakness. You have a right to your anger. You have a right to your pain. I'm angry too, Valerie. I'm furious. I lost 32 years with you. 32 years that will never come back. I didn't see you grow up. I wasn't there when you learned to read, when you graduated from school, when you got married. I couldn't protect you from that man and that family who hurt you. I couldn't be your father when you needed me most. His hands trembled as he spoke. I took one of them in mine, surprised by how fragile it felt, like bird bones wrapped in paper. But you're here now, I said. You found me. Too late, he whispered. I have 3 months if I'm lucky. 3 months to get to know my daughter, to try to make up for 32 lost years. It's a cruel joke of fate, isn't it? Then let's not waste any time, I said, surprising myself with my own firmness. Tell me everything. I want to know everything about you, about my mother, about everything I missed. And so he did. We spent the entire morning in that sunroom as he told me the whole story. How he met my mother in that library. Their first kiss in the rain after a movie. The way she laughed with her whole body without reservation. How much she loved teaching. How her students adored her. The plans they had, the house they were going to buy, the children they wanted to have. He told me about his parents' betrayal in details that made me hate them with every fiber of my being. How they tricked him onto that plane to London. How they left him with nothing in a foreign country. How he fought for 3 years to return, working whatever jobs he could, saving every penny, battling the endless bureaucracy to get new documents. When I came back, he said, his voice breaking, and I found out Eleanor had married that man, that monster who beat her. I nearly went insane. I tried to get her out of there. I begged her to give me another chance, to let me explain what had really happened. But she didn't believe me anymore. And he, John, threatened to kill you both if I didn't disappear. The police were on his side. He had connections. He was dangerous. And I had to stay away because the alternative was putting you both in more danger. But you kept watch over us, I said softly. Every day. I hired people to follow you to make sure you were okay. I sent anonymous money, paid your mother's medical bills in secret. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. But it was all I could do without putting you at risk. And when she died, I tried to get to you immediately. I had lawyers ready, documents prepared, everything set to legally claim you. You were my daughter. I had the right. But your Aunt Sophia was faster. She disappeared with you in less than 24 hours. And by the time I found her, she had already forged documents declaring her your legal guardian. She had changed your last name, invented a whole story. I filed lawsuits, but she had bought off judges, false witnesses who swore I was a danger to you. The legal battle lasted for years, and I lost. The rage I felt was visceral. My Aunt Sophia had stolen an entire life from me. She had condemned me to poverty when my father could have given me everything. She had lied to me about who I was, where I came from, who loved me. Why, I asked though. Robert had already given me part of the answer. Why would she do that? What did she gain by making me suffer? Revenge, my father said simply. She blamed your mother for marrying her abusive brother. She blamed your mother for dying and leaving her with the responsibility, and most of all, she blamed me. In her twisted mind, taking you away from me was justice. It was making me pay for all the pain she believed I had caused. We sat in silence. I was processing all of this. He was catching his breath. I could see that talking so much exhausted him, but I could also see that he needed to say it all to explain everything. Before it was too late. I never stopped looking for you, he continued after a moment. I hired the best private investigators. But your aunt was cleverer than anyone expected. She moved you to 3 different cities before you were 10. She changed your name on school records. She kept you out of any system that could track you. She paid bribes, threatened people, did whatever was necessary to keep you hidden. And she kept me poor, I added bitterly. The money was always gone. Clothes were used, food was the cheapest possible. She made me feel like a burden, like she was doing me a huge favor just by giving me a roof over my head. That was probably part of her revenge, my father said sadly. To make sure you grew up with nothing, thinking you were worth nothing, so that I could never give you what you deserved, even if I found you. A soft knock on the door interrupted us. Robert entered with a thick binder under his arm. "Good morning, Mr. Sanford." "Miss Valerie," he greeted formally. "Pardon the interruption, but there are matters we need to discuss." My father nodded. "Go ahead, Robert. Valerie needs to know everything." Robert sat down and opened the binder. Inside were documents, lots of them. "Miss Valerie, your father has prepared everything for you to take your place as the heir to the Sanford Group. This includes all the companies, properties, investments, and assets he has accumulated over his life." "Wait," I said, holding up my hands. "I don't know anything about business. I have no education. I barely finished high school and then I married Martin. I've spent the last 8 years cleaning house. I can't run a corporate empire." "You won't be alone," my father said firmly. "I have a whole team of professionals who have been working with me for decades. Robert will be your right-hand man. There's David Ramirez, my lead counsel, who handles all legal matters. There's Patricia Mendoza, our CFO, who oversees the finances. There's Chief Engineer Torres, who directs our construction projects. All of them know what they're doing. All of them are completely trustworthy. But I'm the one who would have to make the final decisions," I said, feeling panicked. "What if I make the wrong ones? What if I ruin everything you've built?" My father chuckled, though the chuckle turned into a cough. I waited, scared, until he caught his breath. "My child, what I've built is not so easily ruined. And besides, you have my blood. You have my instincts. I know it. I felt it last night when we talked. You have your mother's intelligence and my determination. You just need to learn. And for that we have time. Some time. 3 months," I asked quietly. "Maybe 4 if the doctors are optimistic. But it's enough for the basics. And after that you'll have Robert and the whole team. I trust them as I trust you." Robert took a document from the folder. "This is Mr. Sanford's will. It's already legally registered. You are the sole heir. There is also a considerable trust fund in your name that you can access immediately. And these," he pulled out more papers, "are documents to begin the process of restoring your original legal name, Valerie Sanford, not Valerie Moore. My real last name, the name I should have had my whole life." "There's more," Robert continued. "Your father has also prepared documents to annul your marriage to Martin Moore. Under the law, that marriage was conducted under a false identity, given that you were using the name Moore when your legal surname should have been Sanford. Furthermore, there is evidence of abandonment and psychological abuse that will facilitate the process." "A divorce?" I asked. The word felt strange in my mouth. I had thought about divorcing Martin 1,000 times over the years, but I never had the courage, the resources, the strength, and now it was being offered to me on a silver platter. "An annulment," Robert corrected. "It's faster and cleaner. The marriage simply ceases to have ever existed. There is no division of assets because you have no assets from that marriage. Everything they owned belonged to the Moore family. You leave with nothing, but you also owe them nothing." "I want you to do it," my father said. "I don't want that man to have any claim on you, any legal tie he could use against you when he finds out who you really are." "When is he going to find out?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. My father and Robert exchanged a look. "Soon," my father said finally. "Very soon, and I want you to be ready for it. I want you to know who you are, to understand your position, so you can face them from a place of strength, not weakness." I spent the next few days in a strange fog torn between 2 worlds. In the mornings, I had breakfast with my father on that light-filled terrace. He would tell me stories about my mother, about my childhood that I couldn't remember, about the life we should have had. He showed me photographs, letters my mother had written to him before everything fell apart, old home movies of me as a baby. In the afternoons, while my father rested, Robert gave me intensive lessons, introduction to the Sanford Group, he called them. He explained each division of the company, every business, every investment. It was overwhelming. Commercial building, construction, residential developments, shopping centers, investments in technology, renewable energy in 6 industries I didn't even know existed. "You don't have to memorize it all," Robert would assure me when he saw my panicked expression. "You just need to understand the basics. The rest you'll learn over time. And when you don't know something, ask. That's what we're all here for." I also met the team. David Ramirez, a man in his 60s with thick glasses and a seemingly photographic memory, explained the legal aspects with infinite patience, repeating concepts over and over until I understood. Patricia Mendoza, the CFO, was a serious woman in her 50s who taught me to read financial statements as if they were storybooks. Engineer Torres, the youngest of the group at just 40, showed me construction blueprints and explained how each project worked from concept to completion. They all treated me with a respect I had never experienced. No one was condescending. No one made me feel stupid for not knowing. When I asked questions, they answered seriously, taking the time to explain every detail. It was so different from my life with Christine that I sometimes had to pinch myself to make sure it was real. One afternoon, Maria took me to a room on the second floor I had never seen. "Mr. Sanford had this prepared for you 3 months ago when he knew they had found you," she explained as she opened the double doors. It was a walk-in closet. No, it was more than a closet. It was an entire room dedicated to clothes, dresses, suits, casual wear, formal gowns, shoes, bags, accessories. All in my size, all elegant but not flashy, all perfect. "He chose every piece personally," Maria said softly. "He spent hours with the designer making sure everything was appropriate, elegant, comfortable. He wanted you to have options to never have to wear old or borrowed clothes again." I touched a navy blue silk dress. The fabric slid through my fingers like water. At Martin's, I had 3 dresses, all old, all bought from discount stores. Christine constantly made fun of them. "You look like a vagrant," she'd say. "You're pathetic." "I don't know what to say," I whispered. "You don't have to say anything, Miss Valerie. You just have to accept that you deserve this, that you always deserve this." That night at dinner, my father asked me a question that would change everything. "Valerie, what do you want to do with your life? If you could do anything, be anything, what would you choose?" I fell silent, chewing slowly. No one had ever asked me that. Not my Aunt Sophia, who decided I should leave school at 16 to work. Not Martin, who assumed my only function was to be his wife and his mother's maid. "I don't know," I admitted finally. "I've never been able to think about it. I've always just done what others expected of me." "Then this is your time to find out," my father said. "You have resources now, you have time, you have freedom. If you want to go to college, go. If you want to travel, travel. If you want to run the business, we will teach you. If you want to sell it all and dedicate yourself to charity, do it. The choice is yours, Valerie. For the first time in your life, the choice is completely yours." The idea was so foreign, so impossible, I didn't know how to process it. On the 5th day, Robert came to my room early in the morning with a serious expression. "Miss Valerie, there's something you should know. Your husband, Martin Moore, has been making calls. He's looking for you." My heart stopped. "What?" "Apparently, the family business is in serious financial trouble. Christine took out loans she can't repay. They're on the verge of bankruptcy. And now Martin is looking for you. He probably thinks he can convince you to come back to help him in some way." "I have nothing to give them," I said automatically. "I never had anything." "But you do now," Robert replied. "And he doesn't know that yet. But he will. Everyone will soon. Your father wants to make a public announcement to officially introduce you as his daughter and heir. It's part of securing your position, protecting you legally, making sure no one can question your right to all of this when he's gone." "A public announcement," I repeated, feeling panicked. "In front of who?" "The media business partners, the society that matters in this circle. Your father is a well-known figure in the business world. Your appearance as his heir will be major news. And that means your husband, your mother-in-law, and anyone who ever knew you before will know exactly who you are now." The thought was both terrifying and thrilling. To see Christine's face when she discovered that the woman she threw out like trash was the daughter of one of the richest men in the country. To see Martin realize what he had lost through his cowardice. When I asked, "In 2 weeks, your father wants you to have time to prepare, to learn the basics, to be ready." "I won't be ready in 2 weeks," I said desperately. "I'll never be ready." "You don't need to be perfect," my father said. He had appeared at the door in his wheelchair without us noticing. "You just need to be there, firm, sure of who you are, and I will be by your side, Valerie. As long as I can breathe, I will be by your side." The next few days were a whirlwind. Maria took me to an exclusive salon where they cut and styled the hair I had worn long and neglected for years. I had a manicure, a pedicure, facials. I felt like a doll being prepped for display, but also for the first time in my life, I felt cared for. A designer came to the house with dozens of dresses for me to choose the perfect outfit for the announcement. "Something elegant but not intimidating," my father instructed. "I want them to see her for who she is, a strong but approachable woman, powerful but not arrogant." We chose a dark blue sheath dress, a classic cut elegant without being showy. Heels that made me walk differently, straighter, more confident. A simple pearl necklace that had belonged to my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother. "You look beautiful," my father said when I tried it on, "just like your mother the day I met her." But at night, when everyone left and I was alone in that enormous room, the fear returned. Who was I to do this? I was Valerie Moore, the woman who cleaned toilets and cooked for a cruel mother-in-law. I was the woman who couldn't give her husband children. I was the woman who was thrown onto the street with a broken suitcase. How could I be Valerie Sanford? How could I be the heir to an empire? How could I look into the eyes of businessmen, lawyers, important people, and not feel like a fraud? One night at 3 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, walked barefoot through the silent hallways to my father's room. The night nurse was dozing in a chair in the corner. My father was awake, looking out the window at the moonlit garden. "Can't sleep either," he said when he saw me enter. "Come sit with me." I sat on the edge of his bed. He took my hand in his. "I'm scared," I admitted quietly. "I'm so scared. What if I can't do it? What if I disappoint everyone?" "Valerie, look at me," he said, his voice firm despite his weakness. "I have spent 32 years imagining who you would be, what kind of woman my little girl would become. And now that I know you, I can tell you with absolute certainty that you are stronger than you think. You survived a difficult childhood. You survived an abusive marriage. You survived being thrown onto the street with nothing. And you are here. You are still standing, still fighting. That strength, that resilience is what you need for this." "But I don't know anything," I insisted. "And I will teach you. Every day I have left, I will teach you everything I can. And what I don't have time to teach you, you will learn. Because you are my daughter. And Sanfords never give up." He hugged me and I stayed there in his frail arms, feeling for the first time in my life what it meant to have a father. A father who believed in me, a father who saw me as more than a disappointment or a burden. The next day, my real education began. It was no longer just informal chats or reviewing documents. My father, despite his illness, got up every morning and gave me lessons. How to read a balance sheet, how to identify a good investment, how to negotiate, how to read people, how to walk into a room and have everyone know you were someone important. "Confidence doesn't come from knowing everything," he told me one afternoon. "It comes from knowing you can learn what you don't know. It comes from surrounding yourself with good people who will help you. It comes from believing in yourself even when no one else does." He also taught me about the Sanford family. My grandparents, the ones who had destroyed his life with my mother, had died years ago. "I never forgave them," he said, his voice hard. "They died without ever knowing you, without knowing anything about you, and I'm glad. They didn't deserve to know you." I had cousins, he explained, children of distant uncles who had tried to get close to him for years, looking for money, favors, positions in the company. "I kept them at a distance," he said. "They aren't real family. They're just vultures waiting for me to die to fight over the scraps. But there will be no scraps. It's all yours. Every cent, every property, every share of stock. And there are legal documents so airtight that not even the best lawyer in the country could break them." A week after I arrived at the house, Robert gave me news. "Martin Moore filed a missing person report," he said with an ironic smile. "He says he's very worried about his wife who hasn't come home. Apparently the police told him that since you're an adult who left voluntarily, there's nothing they can do, but he's making noise on social media asking if anyone has seen you." "Is he really looking for me or just trying to look good?" I asked. "Our investigators say the family business is worse off than we thought. They're 3 months behind on rent for their shop. Suppliers are suing them. Christine is desperate. And apparently someone mentioned to them that you might have family with money." I laughed humorlessly. "Seriously, now all of a sudden they want me back because they think I have money." "Human nature is predictable," my father said from his wheelchair. "Greed always wins out over pride when there's enough money involved." The day of the announcement arrived faster than I expected. I woke up with my stomach in knots, my hands shaking as Maria helped me get dressed. The dark blue dress fit perfectly. The heels gave me height and elegance. But inside, I was still the same Valerie who had been thrown onto the street 2 weeks ago. "Breathe," Maria told me as she styled my hair into an elegant but not too formal chignon. "Breathe and remember who you are. You are Valerie Sanford, daughter of Richard Sanford. No one can take that away from you." I went down to the main hall where my father was waiting. He had insisted on attending the event, despite his doctor's objections. He was in his wheelchair, dressed in an impeccable dark suit, thin and frail, but with his eyes shining with determination. "You look beautiful," he said when he saw me. "Your mother would be so proud." Robert arrived with a briefcase full of documents. "Everything is ready. The media is waiting. We've invited the major newspapers, TV networks, business publications. The most important partners of the Sanford Group are also present, some members of the board and key figures from the business sector." "How many people?" I asked, my voice trembling. Approximately 150, Robert replied. I know it sounds intimidating, but your father will be by your side the whole time, and I'll be there too. You are not alone in this. The event was being held in the main ballroom of the Emperor Hotel, one of the most exclusive in the city. When we arrived, there were cameras everywhere, reporters with recorders, elegant people chatting in small groups, sipping champagne. I clung to the arm of my father's wheelchair. He placed his hand over mine. Easy, my child. Just be yourself. That's all you need. Robert led us to the stage where a podium with microphones had been set up. The lights were bright, almost blinding. My heart was beating so loud I thought everyone could hear it. My father took the microphone first. His voice, though weak, echoed clearly in the silent ballroom. Good afternoon. Many of you know me as Richard Sanford, founder and CEO of the Sanford Group. I have dedicated 40 years of my life to building this company, to creating jobs, to contributing to the development of our country. But today, I am not here to talk about business. I am here to talk about family. He paused. I could see it was costing him to breathe, but he refused to show weakness. 33 years ago, I met the love of my life. Eleanor Moore was a first-grade teacher, an extraordinary woman who filled my world with light. We fell in love. We had a daughter, but circumstances beyond our control separated us. Lies, family betrayal, and a series of tragedies tore away the life we should have had together. The silence in the room was absolute. The cameras were rolling. My daughter was taken from my life when she was just 6 years old. I spent 32 years searching for her. 32 years not knowing if she was okay, if she was happy, if she knew she had a father who never stopped loving her. And 2 weeks ago, I finally found her. He looked at me, his eyes full of tears. Today, I have the honor of introducing you to my daughter, the sole heir to everything I have built, Valerie Sanford. All heads turned to me. The cameras focused. The flashes began. And I, with my legs trembling, approached the microphone. Good morning, I said, surprised that my voice sounded firmer than I felt. My name is Valerie Sanford. Until 2 weeks ago, I didn't know my father was alive. I grew up believing he had abandoned me. I lived 38 years thinking I was an orphan, that I had no family, that I didn't matter to anyone. I could feel tears threatening, but I held them back. Discovering the truth has been overwhelming. Discovering that I have a father who searched for me tirelessly, who never gave up, who loves me unconditionally, is a gift I never thought I would have. And although the time we have left together is short due to his illness, I am infinitely grateful for every moment. My father took my hand. I squeezed it tightly. My father is teaching me to take my place in the Sanford Group. I won't be perfect. I will make mistakes. But I promise to honor his legacy, to work with the same integrity he has always upheld, and to make him proud. Thank you. The room erupted in applause. The cameras didn't stop clicking. Reporters shouted questions that Robert carefully filtered, allowing only a few. Where have you been all these years? Who hid you? How does it feel to discover you're a millionaire? Do you have any business experience? I answered as best I could with honesty, but without giving too many details. Yes, I had lived in modest circumstances. No, I didn't blame my father for anything. Yes, I was a fast learner. No, I had no plans to sell the company. After the official press conference, the social part began. Important businessmen approached to greet us, to introduce themselves, to size me up. I could see their looks, some with genuine curiosity, others with barely disguised skepticism, some clearly thinking I was an opportunist. "Richard, congratulations," said an older gentleman in a gray suit. "What a joy that you finally found your daughter. Though I must say it's a surprise to us all." "Life is full of surprises, Edward," my father replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Valerie is my legitimate daughter. The documents are in order. Everything is legal and transparent." More people approached. An elegant woman with too much jewelry looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. "It must be difficult to adjust to this world coming from wherever you were." "It is," I admitted calmly. "But I'm learning. And I have excellent teachers." The woman huffed and walked away. My father chuckled quietly. "That's Beatrice Corder, a viper. Her husband has been trying to get me to sell him a division of the company for years. Now that she knows you will inherit everything, she's furious." 2 hours passed like this, greetings, superficial conversations, constant evaluations. My feet ached from the heels, my face ached from smiling, but I stood firm. Robert introduced me to every important person, whispering relevant details in my ear. "This is the president of the bank that handles our main accounts. This is the director of the Builders Association. That one is a competitor who has been waiting for your father to die to try and buy the company at a bargain price. Knowledge is power, my father had told me, and Robert was giving me all the knowledge I needed. I was talking with a group of executives about an urban development project when I saw him, Martin. He was at the back of the room near the entrance, still with the security guard who clearly didn't want to let him in. He was wearing his best suit, the same one he wore at our wedding, now a bit tighter around the middle. His hair was slicked back with too much gel, and his face showed a mix of shock, confusion, and something that looked dangerously like greed. Next to him was Christine, dressed in a garish pink suit that did not flatter her. Her hair was dyed an artificial blonde, her makeup was excessive. She looked exactly like what she was, a middle-class woman pretending to be more than she was. Robert saw them at the same time I did. "You know them." "My husband," I said quietly. "And my mother-in-law." Robert made a subtle signal, and 2 more security guards moved toward Martin and Christine. I could see Martin arguing, gesturing, pointing at me. Christine's mouth was agape, staring at me as if she'd seen a ghost. "Do you want them removed?" Robert asked. I looked at my father. He met my gaze, leaving the decision in my hands. This was my moment, my chance to face them from a position of strength. "No," I said finally. "Let them in. I want to talk to them." Robert nodded and signaled to the security guard. Martin and Christine were escorted toward us. I could see the looks from the other guests, the curiosity, the gossip starting. Martin arrived first with that smile I knew so well, the smile he used when he wanted something. "Valerie," he said, trying to sound casual. "My God, I was so worried. You disappeared without a word." "I've been looking for you everywhere." "Really?" I asked, my voice cold, a voice I didn't recognize as my own. "Were you looking for me, Martin? Or were you looking for someone who could save you from bankruptcy?" His smile faltered. Christine approached, still in shock. "Valerie, what is all this? What's going on? Are you Richard Sanford's daughter?" "Yes," I replied simply. "I'm Valerie Sanford. I always was. You just never bothered to really know me. You only cared that I couldn't give you grandchildren and that I had no money to offer." Valerie Honey Martin began reaching for my hand. I took a step back. He let his hand drop. "I know things didn't end well between us. I know my mother went too far. But we are family. We can fix this. We can start over." "Start over," I repeated, and a bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Start over with what, Martin? With your mother treating me like her servant? With you throwing me out on the street whenever she commands it? With 8 years of humiliation and contempt?" "It was a mistake," he said quickly. "A huge mistake. We were stressed about the money, the debts. My mother wasn't thinking clearly. I wasn't thinking clearly. But I love you, Valerie. I've always loved you." "You never loved me," I said with a calm that surprised me. "If you had loved me, you would have defended me. Just once, one single time in 8 years, but you never did. You chose the comfort of pleasing your mother over the dignity of your wife." Christine finally found her voice. "Valerie, I understand you're upset, but you don't need to be so dramatic. We all make mistakes. We're family. Families forgive each other. And now that you have resources, we can help each other. The business is going through a rough patch. We just need a small loan. Something insignificant for someone like you now." There it was, the real reason. They hadn't come to apologize. They hadn't come because they cared. They had come for money. "A small loan," I asked. "Like the small insults you threw at me every day, like the small humiliations, like the small broken suitcase you threw me out on the street with." "That was 2 weeks ago," Christine protested. "You need to get over it. Don't be spiteful." My father coughed gently, drawing their attention. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but it held a steel that made everyone listen. "Mrs. Moore, Mr. Moore, allow me to clarify something. My daughter owes you nothing. In fact, you owe her for 8 years of her life. 8 years of mistreatment that we have carefully documented over these past few days. Witness statements from neighbors, security camera footage, medical records of her multiple miscarriages which you completely ignored." Christine turned pale. Martin looked confused. "We have more than enough evidence to proceed legally against you for psychological abuse," my father continued. "But my daughter, because she is a better person than either of you, has decided to simply end all relations cleanly. The annulment papers are being processed. In 2 weeks legally, you will have never been related to her, and I strongly suggest you do not attempt to contact her again." "You can't do that," Martin said, panic in his voice. "We're married. I have rights." "You have no rights," Robert interjected. "The marriage was contracted under a false identity. Miss Valerie was using the surname Moore, when legally her surname is Sanford. That alone is grounds for an annulment." Add to that emotional abandonment, psychological abuse by the family, and the fact that you literally threw her out onto the street. Any judge will rule in Miss Sanford's favor. And believe me, we have the best lawyers in the country. Christine turned to me, fake tears welling in her eyes. Valerie, please, don't be cruel. I know I made mistakes, but we're family. You can't just abandon us like this. You abandoned me first, I said quietly. When you threw me out onto the street with a broken suitcase. When you called me barren and useless. When you made me feel worthless. That was your abandonment. This is simply justice. Please, Martin begged, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. We're bankrupt. We're going to lose everything. My mother will lose her house. We just need help. Can you give us something just a little? I looked at this man who was my husband for 8 years. This man who never defended me, who never protected me, who saw me cry 1,000 times and never asked why, and I felt nothing. Not love, not hate, not even pity. Just a profound indifference. No, I said simply, I will give you nothing, because you never gave me anything except pain. And I don't say that with anger, Martin. I say it as a fact. You made your choices. You chose money over kindness. You chose pride over love. You chose cruelty over compassion, and now you live with the consequences of those choices. This conversation is over. The guards will escort you out, and if you attempt to contact me again, we will take legal action. Understood. Robert signaled and the security guards approached. Martin looked around desperately, searching for support, finding only curious faces and a few satisfied smirks. The business world enjoyed drama, but they wouldn't back losers. This isn't over, Christine threatened as the guards led them to the exit. We'll sue. We'll... Try, my father said, his voice cold, and you will meet the most ferocious legal team in the country. Choose your battles wisely, Mrs. Moore, because you've already lost this one. I watched them go, Martin looking back, still in shock. Christine furious, shouting empty threats, and when the doors closed behind them, I felt something snap inside me, not pain but liberation. As if chains I had been carrying for years had finally broken. Are you all right? My father asked softly. Yes, I replied, surprised to realize it was true. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. The rest of the event passed in a blur. More introductions, more conversations, more evaluations. But I no longer cared so much what they thought. I had faced my demons. I had looked into the eyes of the people who made me feel less than nothing and told them no, that they deserved nothing from me. That they had no power over me, and it felt incredible. That night, back at the mansion, my father and I had dinner on the terrace as always, but this time there was something different in the air, a sense of closure, of one chapter ending and another beginning. I'm proud of you, my father said. The way you handled that situation today, with class, with firmness, but without needless cruelty. That's what makes a true leader. I learned from the best, I replied, smiling. Valerie, he said after a moment, his voice serious. I need to talk to you about something important. The doctors gave me some news today. My condition has worsened faster than expected. I may have weeks left, not months. Terror hit me like a physical blow. No, I just found you. You can't. Shh, he soothed, taking my hand. Listen to me. I have had a full life. I have built an empire. I have loved deeply. And now, at the end, I found my daughter. I got to know you. I gotta tell you how much I love you. That is more than many people get. I am at peace with this. But I'm not, I said, tears streaming freely. It's not enough time. I need more time with you. I need years, decades. I need to get back everything we lost. I know my child. I wish for that too. But it's not our decision. So let's use the time we have wisely. There is still so much I want to teach you, so much I want you to know. The next few days were intense. My father, despite his growing weakness, was determined to teach me everything he could. He took me on virtual tours of the company's various headquarters via video calls. He introduced me via video to key executives, managers, important employees. He explained every ongoing project, every investment, every major decision that would need to be made in the coming months. Robert will guide you, he assured me constantly, and the team is solid. But you must be the one to make the final decisions. You are the Sanford. You carry my blood, my name, my legacy. We also spent time just being father and daughter. He told me stories of his childhood, of his parents, despite all the wrong they did, of his grandparents who would have adored me. He showed me family photo albums explaining who each person was, the stories behind each picture. "This is your maternal grandmother," he said, pointing to an old photo. "Your mother's mother. She died when you were 2, but she adored you. She used to say you were the most beautiful child she had ever seen. She used to sing you songs in Italian, do you remember?" And surprisingly, I did. Vaguely in the back of my memory was a soft voice singing words I didn't understand, a memory so old I thought I had imagined it. But it was real. It was my grandmother. "There's so much I'll never know," I said sadly. "So many people I never met. But now you know about them," my father replied. "Now you know where you come from, who your ancestors were, what blood runs through your veins, and no one can ever take that from you." A week after the public announcement, Robert called me to his office with news. "The Moores business officially declared bankruptcy yesterday," he reported. "The house where they lived will be foreclosed on next month. Christine is temporarily living with a sister. And Martin is trying to find work, but his reputation in the industry is ruined. Word got out. Everyone knows how he treated you." "How do I feel about that?" I wondered aloud. "How do you feel?" Robert asked. "Nothing," I admitted. "I thought I would feel satisfaction. I thought I would feel justice had been served, but I just feel indifferent, as if they are strangers whose lives do not concern me." "That is maturity," Robert said with approval. "Vengeance would have been actively participating in their destruction. What you did was simply not save them from the consequences of their own actions. There is an important difference." The days settled into a routine, mornings learning the business with Robert and the team, afternoons with my father growing weaker each day but still mentally sharp, nights studying documents, memorizing names, preparing for the day I would have to do it alone. And then that day came. It was a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks and 4 days after the black Mercedes had stopped in front of me on that curb. Maria came to my room with tears in her eyes. "It's Mr. Sanford," she said softly. "The doctors say it's a matter of hours. He's asking for you." I ran to his room. He was in the bed surrounded by machines, the beep of the monitor growing slower. But when he saw me enter, he smiled. "My beautiful girl," he whispered. "Come here." I sat on the edge of the bed, taking his hand. It was cold, so fragile. "Dad," I said, and it was the first time I had ever used that word. "Please don't leave me. I need you." "You don't need me anymore," he replied, his voice barely a whisper. "You are stronger than you think. Smarter, more capable. And you are going to do incredible things, Valerie. I know it." "I can't do it without you," I sobbed. "Yes, you can. And you will. Because you are my daughter. Because you carry my blood. Because your mother would have been so proud of the woman you've become." He paused, breathing with difficulty. "Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you will live. Not just survive, but truly live. That you will find real love, that you will build a family of your own, that you will be happy. Promise me." "I promise," I said, crying so hard I could barely speak. "I love you, Valerie. I have always loved you, every day of these 32 years, and I will love you every day in eternity." "I love you too, Dad." His eyes slowly closed. The beep of the monitor began to flatten. And Richard Sanford, my father, the man who searched for me tirelessly, who never gave up, who gave me 1 month of love that made up for 32 years of absence, was gone. The days after the funeral were a fog. Hundreds of people attended, important businessmen, politicians, people I had never met but whose lives my father had apparently touched. They all offered condolences, all said nice things, but I barely heard them. Robert became my anchor. He guided me through the necessary meetings, the document signings, the decisions that couldn't wait. The entire team closed ranks around me, protecting me, supporting me, ensuring I didn't drown in responsibilities when I could barely stay emotionally afloat. "Take the time you need," David Ramirez told me. "The company isn't going to collapse in a week." But I couldn't take time. If I stopped, if I allowed myself to fully feel, I would collapse. So I worked. I studied. I learned. I immersed myself in the business as my father had taught me, using work as a shield against the grief. And slowly, very slowly, I began to find my way. 2 months after the funeral, I chaired my first official board meeting as CEO of the Sanford Group. There were men in that room with decades more experience than me. There were people who clearly thought I was a child playing at business. But when I spoke, when I presented the strategy I had been developing with Robert and the team, when I demonstrated that I had done my homework, that I understood the numbers, that I had a vision, I saw the skepticism turn to respect. It didn't happen overnight. There were mistakes. There were days I wanted to give up. There were moments when imposter syndrome consumed me. But each time I remembered my father's words. "You are stronger than you think. The company didn't just survive under my leadership, it thrived. We implemented new social responsibility initiatives. We expanded into markets my father had been considering. We modernized processes. And most importantly, we took care of our people. Because my father had taught me that a successful business isn't just numbers on a page, it's the people who make those numbers possible. 6 months later, I was in my office reviewing proposals when Maria knocked on the door. "Excuse me, Miss Valerie, but there's someone in reception asking for you. He says it's urgent." "Who is it?" "Martin Moore." I hadn't heard anything about him since the day of the announcement. What does he want? He didn't say. But he looks different. Thinner, tired. I sighed. Part of me wanted to tell her to throw him out. But another part, the part my father had cultivated, the part that believed in giving second chances but not thirds, made me say, send him up. But have Robert present. Martin walked into my office 5 minutes later. Maria had been right. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. He had deep dark circles under his eyes. The suit he was wearing was worn. I stood up but didn't offer him a seat. "Valerie," he began, his voice hoarse, "thank you for seeing me. I know I don't deserve 5 minutes of your time." "No," I agreed. "You don't. What do you want, Martin?" "I didn't come to ask for money," he said, quickly holding up his hands. "I know I have no right. I just came to tell you I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I was a coward. I was weak. I failed you in every possible way. And I've lived with that shame for these past few months." And I asked coolly, "And nothing. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't expect you to give me another chance. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost. Not the money, not the status. You. I lost an extraordinary woman who loved me when she had no reason to, and I will live with that regret for the rest of my life." I looked at this man who was once my husband and I felt pity. Not love, not full forgiveness, but pity. "I believe you," I said finally. "I believe you're sorry. But that doesn't change anything, Martin. We can't go back. We can't fix what was broken. All we can do is move forward." "I know," he replied, tears in his eyes. "I just wanted you to know. Be happy, Valerie. You deserve to be happy." "I am," I said, and I realized it was true. I finally am. Martin left, and that was the last I ever saw of him. 1 year to the day after I sat on that curb in the rain, I was standing on the mansion's terrace, the same one where I had breakfast with my father so many times. The company was still growing. I had started a foundation in my father's name that helped women in situations of domestic abuse. I had established scholarships for low-income students. And I had started therapy because I realized that to be truly free, I needed to heal the wounds that 8 years of abuse had left. I needed to learn to trust again, to love again, to live without fear again. Maria approached with a tray of coffee. "Thinking of Mr. Richard." "Always," I replied. "You know, sometimes I still can't believe any of this really happened, that a year ago I was sitting on a curb with a broken suitcase thinking my life was over. And instead," Maria said with a smile, "it was just beginning." She was right. My life with Martin hadn't been a life. It had been survival. But this was truly living. Building something meaningful, helping others, honoring my father's memory, embracing the second chance that fate had given me in the most unexpected way. There were still hard days. I still missed my father with a physical ache. I still wondered what he would have said about this or that decision, but I also knew he would be proud. That wherever he was watching and smiling. Because I had kept my promise. I was living. Not just surviving, but truly living. And that curb where I sat a year ago, broken and lost, now felt like the starting point of everything. The place where the woman I had been ended, and the woman I was destined to be began. Valerie Sanford. Businesswoman, philanthropist, daughter of Richard Sanford. But above all, a survivor. A fighter. A woman who refused to stay down when life knocked her over. And that, I told myself, watching the sunset from my terrace, from my home in my life, that was finally mine. That was more than enough.